These are the magnificent Carpathian Mountains, teeming with bears and wolves and lynx, the last great European wilderness. But now there is a battle going on for their future. Gangsters are illegally cutting down the forests. They're stealing $500 million worth of wood a year. And the profits are so great, they're threatening to kill anyone who gets in their way. The gangster.
Să aveți viață bună, trebuie să-i scriți un pic așa. Ocol și-o pus în cap. Imediat auzi că moare unul.
The whistleblower.
De 2 ori pe săptămână amenințau cu moarte, câteodată și de 2 ori pe zi.
And they don't want us investigating what's really happening.
Nu vrei să stai de vorbă?
Da, n-am ce să stau, n-am. Ziceți pentru ce? N-am pentru ce, n-am.
On the other side in Ukraine, armed bands of Cossacks are mobilizing to protect the forests and pursue the illegal loggers. The Cossack. And profiting from all this, big business. Gerald Schweikhofer is a billionaire kingpin of the world's timber industry. This is the anti-organized crime unit of the Romanian Public Ministry. They're on the Schweikhofer company's trail. We've been investigating the Schweikhofer connection. OCCRP reporter Romana-Tara has been tracing the people involved in the battle on the ground, the officials who have fought to protect the forests, and the politicians who are accused of being hand-in-glove with the gangsters. She's followed the wood from the illegal logging camps through the logging mills to supposedly legitimate factories. The Carpathian Mountains cover an area roughly the size of Great Britain. They are mainly in Romania but stretch into Ukraine and neighboring countries. It is the largest stretch of virgin forest in Europe and a haven for wildlife. A third of the brown bears in Europe live in Romania's forests, thousands of animals. By day, Europe's only big cat, the lynx, can be found hunting, like these which were caught on surveillance cameras in the Romanian mountains earlier this year, and which prey on the plentiful roe deer in the woods. By night, packs of wolves prowl the Carpathians. There are 3,000 in the mountains. The forests are also known as the lungs of Europe because they suck in vast quantities of carbon dioxide and turn it into oxygen. Environmental investigator Alexander von Bismarck says it's as important as a rainforest.
It's that we're in the heart of Europe, you know. I mean, it's both the most important forest in Europe, but it's close to home for me too, compared to being in a jungle in the Amazon or something.
Western companies are behind the demand for timber for furniture making and construction. Von Bismarck alleges they're turning to gangsters to source the wood. He says much of it is sourced illegally.
These are real crimes, and the crimes should be prosecuted. And, you know, there have been laws for a long time in this country making cutting illegal wood a crime. That's why it's illegal. So you are left totally alone in Romania to battle the organized crime that results from that. And why is it so organized and so powerful? Because we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars.
This massive sawmill is one of 5 factories in Romania run by the giant Austrian timber company Schweikhofer. They process most of the wood from the forests in the mountains for timber yards and do-it-yourself stores all over Europe. They say they're very proud of their record in encouraging sustainable forestry.
Earth is breathing thanks to the forest. We take care of the forest. We're the Holz Industries Schweikhofer, and we know each tree personally.
But Schweikhofer has been repeatedly accused of buying timber from the gangsters who are illegally clearing the forests. Prosecutors are about to announce whether they will bring charges against the company after a probe by a special division that deals with organized crime. Last year, Austrian billionaire Gerald Schweikhofer, who runs the company, denied they had done anything wrong.
Grüß Gott, mein Name ist Gerald Schweikhofer. Ausgerechnet uns wird unterstellt, wir würden durch illegale Methoden den Holzbestand in Rumänien gefährden. Das stimmt nicht. Deshalb möchte ich mich auf diese Weise zu Wort melden.
He showed the certificates which guarantee that their wood is from sustainable sources. But now, the Forest Stewardship Council has suspended that certificate and is also investigating the company.
A fost codul întunecat, pădure seculară neatinsă. Și uitați-vă cum arată. Deci, nicio intervenție a mâinii de om nu a fost în pădurile astea. E păcat, pentru că nefericire, efectul ăsta va dăinui încă poate 50-100 de ani.
The effect Matei is talking about is increased flooding because the trees have all been cut down. This is one of the worst affected parts of the country for deforestation. It is in the north of Romania, around the town of Borșa, which is on the edge of the Maramureș National Park Conservation Area. We regularly come across large piles of logs, a sign that massive timber harvesting is still underway, much of it illegal.
Dacă această pădure a fost rasă în stilul ăsta nebunesc, efectul se vede în zonă. S-a schimbat total atmosfera, clima în țară, din cauza pădurilor. Și nimeni nu interesează, nimeni nu ia nicio măsură. Interesant că instituțiile statului sunt orbe și surde la tot ce s-a întâmplat în zona asta.
In court, the Association of Forest Owners that Matei Mihaly represents won the right to take back 170 square kilometers of forest land, an area almost as big as the capital city of Bucharest. But authorities returned them only 20%. The state gave the property to other people who had no right to the land and soon cut down the forests. A huge percent of their trees have now been cleared. This plot, part of the Maramureș Mountains Nature Reserve, is still standing, but not for long. Somehow it has fallen into the hands of local gangsters. In 2009, the same gangsters were on the brink of war with Romanian authorities. 450 gendarmes and 200 police raided the town of Borșa to stop one of the largest vehicle theft operations in Western Europe. It was called Operation Bulldozer, and authorities found several vehicles hidden in the forest. Two brothers named Grigore and Toader Timiș, leaders of the so-called Butanu criminal group, attacked gendarmes during the raid. They were arrested and convicted for assault. Years later, Grigore and Toader ended up with the disputed part of the Maramureș Mountain Natural Reserve. Toader Timiș was released from prison last year after serving a sentence of more than 2 years for assault and illegal logging. Grigore Timiș is famous across Romania after storming into a town hall several years ago, armed with a sword over a land ownership dispute. A report by the Romanian intelligence services sent to Parliament says the Butanu criminal group uses violence to reach its goal to control legal and illegal businesses in the forestry sector. We tried to talk to Grigore Timiș. As we were filming the group's log warehouse, the man in the video stopped in front of our car with a fistful of rocks. After fleeing the warehouse, as we pulled into a parking lot in the center of town, we were surrounded by a group of men led by Timiș.
Nu vrei să stai de vorbă cu...
Dar n-am ce să stau, n-am, ziceți pentru ce? N-am pentru ce, n-am.
When the police raided the town of Borșa and arrested the leaders of the Butanu clan, they found that one of the stolen vehicles had been transported on a truck belonging to a powerful local politician. This is Nuțu Fanta.
Vin în fața dumneavoastră cu o problemă legată de la...
He has powerful political connections. Gabriel Oprea, the former interior minister, is godfather to Fanta's daughter. It turned out that Fanta's wife sold the natural reserve to the Butanu gangsters, despite the land belonging to someone else. In Romania, politicians are accused of arranging for state land to be transferred through a chain of proxy owners, who then sell it off at a vast profit, most of which ends up with the same politicians who arranged for the land transfer in the first place. In this case, the supposed proxy was a local woman, Marie Kindriș, whose name appeared on the paperwork. We tracked her down.
Dumneavoastră, practic, îmi transmiteți că tot procesul ăsta a aparținut al cuiva și nu ați avut nimic de a face cu el. Și că ați fost folosită.
Ce să mai zic, eu nu m-am ocupat deloc de acest proces.
From Marie, the land passed to Fanta's driver. The driver died, and the documents show that the driver's wife and Fanta's wife then sold part of the plot onto the Butanu gangsters, although the driver's wife says she didn't get her share of the profit. We asked Fanta whether he had set up the whole series of proxy deals to take and sell the forest land.
Eu vă pot spune că nu am nicio legătură cu efectiv cu ce s-a întâmplat în această situația.
We showed him the documents, which apparently reveal that his wife profited from the deal.
Vis-a-vis de ce apare soția acolo, dacă doriți, putem avea o poziție să o întreb pe nevastă mea de ce a fost pusă ea.
There's a mystery about where the money really went. Fanta is the first to admit the driver doesn't seem to have benefited.
Dacă mergeți să vedeți unde locuiește, are o casă frumoasă făcută, nu este ceva să sară în altă variantă. Au doi copii, o fată și un băiat, deci nu.
All the more extraordinary given that in 2005, Fanta nominally gave a logging and transport company to his driver, a company worth $44 million. The local assumption is that the driver was a proxy or front, although Fanta denies it. The Timish brothers of the Butanu clan are now at large and exploit much of the forest sold by Fanta's wife. According to the Environmental Guard, the brothers' company harvests timber illegally, and their opponents claim Fanta has helped them in other deals.
Puțul ăsta Fontomou a câștigat pe lângă ăsta 137 de hectare, tot așa 100 și cât, nu știu cât de hectare.
Pe ce nume?
Și tot așa le-a dat la Grigore Budanu.
The Butanu gang has also been cutting down this forest, even though its ownership is still in dispute. This businessman, Iwan Roman, bought the right to the land, but the gang says is theirs. Last year, a member of the gang, the infamous Tuadar Timish, was secretly recorded making threats to kill Mr. Roman.
Îi prinde odată și o să rămâi fără el. Să aveți viață bună, trebuie să instruiți un pic pe ăștia. Spunea, acolo și-o pus în cap. Imediat auzi că moare unul pe...
And he says there's no point going to a lawyer.
Dai bani la avocat și la domn de aiurea și eu, că când câștigi tu, tăiată, băi, fraire.
Instantă.
Cheltuie-mă bani aiurea.
Instantă se pronunță.
Da, exact. Dar până atunci, pentru că se termină, nu mai ai pădure.
By the time we got to the forest, they'd already chopped it down.
Am sentința câștigată, scrie societate, împuternici, scrie în sentință. Tot a doua zi vineam și urmăream aici. Să nu se bage cineva, să fure, să nu știu ce. Și am găsit explotări. Am sunat imediat la 112, a venit poliția și s-a făcut anchete. Era Toader Butanu, că el e proprietar, dar zic, arată-mi o hârtie, măi. Cum am lăsat cu moartea, m-a găsit pe aici, m-a spânzurat, mă omoară, tot cu mașinile, cu tot.
Roman warned the forestry department, in writing, that the Butanu clan had no right to chop down the forest, but they still let them go ahead. We wanted to know why they did that.
Nu au fost amenințat mai multe acolo. De-aia zic că lăsăm instanța să...
Amenințat de către cine?
De către cei care se judecă azi.
It turned out he'd been intimidated by the Butanu clan. The forestry department was fined for helping the brothers. But as soon as Tuadar Timish got out of prison, he was back to his tricks, brazenly threatening to kill Mr. Roman, even in front of a policeman.
Dacă îl găsești mort, să știi că eu fac.
Știi că mai se întâmplă ceva, ești primul pe care te căutezi.
The company controlled by these gangsters is an important supplier to Schweighofer, whose turnover is now $500 million a year in Romania alone. They sold wood to Schweighofer right from the forest they bought from Fanta's wife. The people who legally own the forest say Schweighofer must know what is going on, because their 5 factories in Romania need more wood than can be lawfully sourced.
Acest fenomen al tăierilor ilegale în amplitudinea pe care o are în prezent și pe care au avut-o în ultimii ani nu ar fi existat dacă nu ar fi fost cererea de la industrie. De exemplu, cel mai clar este al companiei Schweighofer, care și-a dezvoltat capacități de prelucrare a masei lemnoase peste 3,4 milioane metri cub de buș de an, depășește posibilitatea legală a pădurilor României de lemn exploatat legal.
But the damage done to the forests and to the habitat of lynxes, wolves and bears is such that the Worldwide Fund has filed a complaint against the company. The Forestry Stewardship Council are investigating and will report this month on serious allegations that Schweighofer is using illegally logged wood. The network of small operators supplying Schweighofer looks ramshackle, but it is doing serious damage to the forests. Converted vans and old steam trains run on the only railway line into these mountains. It is owned by the local mayor's family and their company, 15 wagon loads of wood were confiscated because they had no documents to show they had been legally logged. Vasile Vlad is the head of the local forestry department. He's trying to protect the forests. He took us on the train. On the way there, he points out stacks of wood allegedly cut without permission. He says some logging companies in the area have owners with criminal records. They all still supply timber to Schweighofer. The appointment of a new police chief gave Vlad hope.
Să schimba comandantul de poliție. Să dăm lucra 2 săptămâni, 4 dintre ăștia mari. Comandantul ăsta și cu noi împreună am mers și am prins acolo în pădure. S-o și luat plecat de aici. Cu tilajul, cu tot. În 2 săptămâni s-o cărat de aici, plus că-i bani.
But it soon returned to business as usual.
După care n-am văzut, nu mai vor să facă acțiuni cu mine. Nu mai vreau, nu.
And they have reason to be afraid. These are border police chasing illegal loggers in the Maramuresh Mountains 2 months ago. The loggers had just attacked one of the police officers and put him in the hospital. Even when they were caught, they confronted the police. 2 were arrested. They were Schweighofer contractors, and the attack took place next to the company's collection point. We tracked down one of the local gangsters who supplied that depot with mafia wood and secretly recorded him telling us how it works with Schweighofer, or Holtz, as he calls them.
Ce făcea Holtzul? Holtzul îi punea să exploateze. Autorizația, de exemplu, PXY, pe mine cum mă cheamă, se scotea autorizația. Eu scoteam autorizația, eu le făceam exploatarea.
Așa.
Și ei îmi plăteau prestarea de serviciu.
Așa.
Eu plăteam cu cecurile mele către ei masa lemnoasă pe picior. Aici o mare mișcare. Și ei îmi plăteau lemnul.
Gheorghe Ushchuk is now under investigation by prosecutors for selling illegal wood to Schweighofer. He also leads us back to our old friend and politician Nutsu Fanta. Remember the mysterious $44 million company that went to his driver? That ended up in the hands of Ushchuk and his brother-in-law, but Fanta says there's an innocent explanation.
În momentul în care am avut perioada de recuperare cu un accident auto, 2 săptămâni l-am avut lăsat să semneze și să stea. Asta a fost toată povestea.
We've uncovered the network of gangsters, front companies, and unscrupulous politicians who are complicit in illegal logging. But Schweighofer still insists that they do not knowingly accept illegally logged wood. Carl Schmidt was the general manager of Schweighofer Romania when this conversation was secretly recorded.
We started big pressure from government side because we are too big already. They want to change forest law against us and all these stupid things.
He was recorded by Alexander von Bismarck, posing as an unscrupulous wood supplier, but in reality, the director of the American Environmental Investigation Agency. He asked Schmidt if Schweighofer would buy wood if he cut down more than he was allowed to.
So even if I'm limited by the contract with the community, 3,000 or whatever, I've got another 3,000 or another 4,000, that gets me to 20,000.
It is no problem. You are welcome.
Schmidt has now left the company. Schweighofer says that they do not directly buy illegally logged wood, and if any has got into their supply chain, it was in the past, and through deliveries made at collection points, not directly to their mills. But Alexander von Bismarck rejects this.
It's very disingenuous, of course, for a company like Schweighofer that has so much knowledge and is so close to the forest to say they don't know these suppliers and they have no connection. Obviously, there are many forms of relationships where they are financing up front the actual cutting. They have all kinds of different relationships with these suppliers. But for them to say they are not responsible, that their responsibility ends at their sawmill door, when the truck is just coming from a few kilometers down the road from a national park, it's ridiculous, it's unethical, and it should be illegal under the new European law.
And not just in Romania are there concerns about Schweighofer.
Доброго дня. Ми є Майдан, правий сектор, козаки, слава Україні.
This is footage shot by the Cossack Battalion, a paramilitary organization originally formed to fight against pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine. They're active in the Storozhenetsky forest in southwest Ukraine. It is administered from the town of Chernivtsi.
Це просто ми приїхали, перевіряємо, бо дуже багато вирубка йде. Ми зупинили колію на Румунію. У нас є докази, у нас є документи, що можемо право перевірити вас.
Now they are fighting gun in hand against illegal logging in the west of the country. They raid the camps of the loggers, put up checkpoints on forest roads, stop timber trucks, and demand to see their paperwork.
Покажіть мені ці дрова документ.
The driver says it's firewood and rotten logs, but a quick check shows there's timber too.
Що ви розказуєте? Діти з лузера. Я не знаю, як вони можуть, як вони це.
Ну нічого не дали, ніяких документів.
Не кожен зробив порядок. Це уничтожає наш ліс до останнього дерева. Дивіться, це ж ліс, який мав би ще рости куча років. І не бачимо робочих нікого. Їх вже предупредили, що ми приїдемо, хочемо подивитися. Це на 10 років вперед вони вирізали ліс. Молодий ліс.
In Ukraine, the forests are still owned by the state, as are the companies that administer and exploit them. The people who ran from the Cossacks are state employees.
І вони тікають, дивіться, тітушки йобані. Лишили їду, лишили трактора, лишили бензопили. Дивіться, що зробили, дивіться, це за 2-3 місяці.
This forest is on the border with Romania and is a major source of wood for Schweighofer's mills. In the past 6 years, logs from this area worth almost $45 million have been shipped to Romania. We tracked down the leader of the Cossack unit, Sergei Mironov, and persuaded him to take us back to the forest he was trying to protect. It had already been cut down illegally and sold.
Скільки тут дерев? Скільки це фальшивиків? Це біля 300 тисяч кубів. Вагон лізе 20 кубів, порахуйте. 20 тисяч стоїть вагон. Це на Румунію. 50-60 вагонів в день.
The official pretext for cutting in this area is to get rid of diseased trees.
По закону, що це від природи, треба це чистити. Оце сухе убрати, остальне все залишити. Вони беруть ділянку, типу ці дерева дають далі за болячку. 100 метрів треба виробити, щоб він не давав далі.
Although the foresters were only supposed to cut down hollow or sick trees, footage by Sergei shows piles of green young logs, ready for sale.
Оце все за рік. Це мало рубатися мінімум 5-6 років. Це зарплати лісникам, цим людям, які працюють, це все їхні гроші мали бути. Зараз у них роботи не буде. Тепер вони 5 років мусять сидіти і їсти свої нігті, прикинь? Ну нема що рубати, ну дивись. Бач, це типу законно. Ось така має бути печать. Це легально. Знаєш, така печать має бути. На кожному має бути. Немає, видиш? Немає. Дивись. Немає.
Sergei and his men have moved on from stopping trucks to stopping trains.
Оцей ліс йде на вагон. Вагони це все йде на Румунію, це вже сложено. От відсіля все відправляється. Тут я зупиняв вагони теж. Є документи на них, які кримінально було відкрите, теж тут були, ліс стояв. Рано я зловив з лісом, на другий день вже лісу в вагонах не було, вивезли.
We went to see the police officer who investigates illegal logging in the area. He had just seized more illegal timber.
Лісодеревина вивозилася з порушенням діючого законодавства України, а саме без товаротранспортних накладних, без чіпів, яка повинна бути на кожному стовбурі.
These are the trucks they stopped, coming straight from Sergei's forest.
Проблема на даний час є досить серйозною, оскільки нам в нашій області дозволена вирубка лісу на календарний рік. Орієнтовно десь 350 тисяч метрів кубічних, а фактично десь вирубається до 800 тисяч. Працівники самі лісової охорони, дійсно обстеження, вносять відомості в офіційні документи, що на даній ділянці лісу є яка-то кількість хворих дерев у відсотковому співвідношенні, тому необхідно вирубати. Фактично, далі вирубають зовсім більше, ніж вони вказали.
Police have sent prosecutors a file alleging one of the forest employees asked for bribes from a logging company.
В січні місяці було задокументовано працівника лісової охорони Сторожинецького державного лісгоспу, який вимагав хабар в розмірі 35 тисяч гривень для передачі його заступнику голови обласної державної адміністрації, це рівень, який в свою чергу мав тиснути на директорів Держлісгоспів, в тому числі Сторожинецького, щоб для певного підприємця відпускати лісодеревину.
Ukrainian police suspect that the wood from Sergei's forest was headed across the border.
Цей бізнесмен має якийсь стосунок до Румунії?
У нього прізвище румунське, більше нічого не можу сказати.
The Ukrainian authorities admit that there have been problems in the forests that Sergei patrols.
Державної екологічної інспекції було перевірено Сторожинецький лісгосп на вимогу оцих активістів, що оцей, і було, значить, виявлено порушення вимог ведення лісового господарства.
They say that the problem is that the forest keepers are supposed to protect the forest, but also make money by selling the wood.
Треба розділити, щоб лісова охорона займалася охороною лісу, посадкою, вирощуванням і продавала суб'єктам господарювання той ліс на кореню, а інша структура рубала, і туди буде wood.
But they insist that the problems are not widespread or serious. They say only firewood and thin logs, which would otherwise be useless, are supplied to Schweighofer. But when we drove 100 kilometers west, we encountered the same situation. Logs from the forest in the Ivano-Frankivsk region also end up at the same destination.
Накрили нема. Там ще пень. Ну. І так є ту. Там пні під низом. Не було лісу.
І куди цей ліс тоді йде?
На Швейцгофер.
Igor, a representative of businessmen in the forestry industry, says illegal loggers even staged an assassination attempt on him.
Моя дружина почула гавкіт собаки, відкрила вікно і побачила, що собака атакує невідомих людей. Собака повернулася, зняла 2 гранати, висіли на дверях, вона зірвала їх і пробувала віднести подальше від дверей. Одна з цих гранат зірвалася ось тут, в цьому місці. Ось тут є сліди. Ось тут є осколками побите огорожа.
Igor thinks his dog saved them by dragging off the hand grenades. He's sad that it died in the process. In his opinion, massive logging is a direct consequence of widespread corruption in the country.
Справа в тому, що керівники лісового господарства від кожного кубічного метра, що продали на Швейцгофер, отримували поза контрактом до кишені відповідну кількість євро. Тобто частина коштів йшла у портфеля. Ви дослідили, що в Європі йде багато нелегального лісу з України, йде контрабанда. Значить, що виходить? Значить, виходить, ті, хто мають це гальмувати і припиняти, вони це не роблять. Це є ціла державна машина. Це є і податкова, і митниця, і поліція, і всі.
Romania is the biggest market for Ukrainian wood, officially taking in over 1 million cubic meters a year, worth $75 million. Most of this timber goes to Schweighofer mills. According to Dmytro Dobrodomov, a member of the Ukrainian parliament, these are not the complete figures. Large volumes are smuggled into Romania as well.
Об'єми зараз контрабанди лісу, власне, лісу-кругляка, вони просто вже перевершують будь-які цифри попередніх років.
A moratorium on the export of raw timber caused another surge in illegal logging.
2/3 колії в Чернівецькому там залізній дорозі, це власне те, що йде, я так розумію, в Румунію, скорше за все, заповнені просто вагонами з необлікованою деревиною, лісом-кругляком, який вивозиться.
Schweighofer is now slightly affected by the ban. We obtained confidential documents from inside Schweighofer that say they were secretly paying a senior Ukrainian railroad employee for spying on their competitors. They say he was worried about being caught and demanded more money. We tracked down the railroad employee, Vitaly Konyuk, now a senior executive for the Russian railways in Kiev. He denies selling information and says the meetings were official.
Ніяку інформацію я чи вони не купляли, ми зустрічалися, бо у нас були інтереси збільшення об'ємів перевезень.
In the same documents, Schweighofer employees say a senior Ukrainian politician asked the company for an all-expense-paid family trip to Vienna. In exchange for the trip, he would allegedly help them get permission to build a sawmill. Schweighofer says there's no trace in their records that this happened. Schweighofer is now preparing for the export ban by rebuilding a timber mill here in Ukraine in Kolomia.
Прошу не знімати, щоб я не матюкався.
А чого ви маєте матюкатись?
А що маєте знімати?
Ну...
Прийдете в робочий день, коли будете керівник. Сергій, не знімай, будь ласка.
The mayor of Kolomia is happy about Schweighofer's investment because the corporation promised to create 500 jobs, which, the mayor says, would solve the local community's problems. The mill would have processing capacity of 1.2 million cubic meters of timber a year, the exact amount Ukraine has exported to Romania each year.
Мало того, вони ставлять питання про концесію тяжко доступних гірських лісів на 50 років. Чого не дали їм в Румунії?
Скільки гектарів?
Не обмежено. Вони будуть на всіх конкурсах участвувати. Якщо ви не були в гостях в нас в горах, то ви б зрозуміли, що Україні це дуже потрібно. Потрібно, щоб хтось появився хазяїн.
According to the mayor, negotiations between Schweighofer and the Ministry of Environment in Ukraine are underway.
Швайгофер просить, дайте мені ліси, я буду садити, різати, приводити їх до світових норм. Ні Україна, ні Румунія не погоджуються на його умови. Питання чому?
When we tell him the company is under investigation for allegedly sourcing illegally logged timber in Romania, the mayor has an outburst of honesty.
Я думаю, в нас буде та ж сама ситуація. Що можна про це сказати? Бізнес є аморальним.
But while the mayor waits for a new mill in Kolomia, trainloads of Ukrainian timber are loaded up and sent over the border to Romania. This is their destination, Schweighofer's giant mill in Radauts, which processes much of the wood from Ukraine. It produces over 1 million cubic meters of timber a year. Here is the billionaire owner Gerald Schweighofer visiting the plant and posing with the manager Nikifor Tofan. Just south of the mill in Radauts is one of its major suppliers, a local company called GVC, which supplied $3.5 million worth of wood last year. GVC is under investigation by organized crime prosecutors for illegal logging. On paper, the company is owned by unremarkable local people, but the word is that they are proxies for the real owner who has close links to Schweighofer. We found that GVC registered a trademark of a company owned by a person named George Tofan. Now he's the brother of Nikifor Tofan, the manager of Gerald Schweighofer's mill in neighboring Radauts. We went to GVC Computers' warehouse to look for George.
Bună ziua! Aici GVC Computers?
Da.
Domnul Tofan?
Nu sunt eu.
E aici? Îl găsim?
Nu-l găsiți, îl găsiți la...
Dar ăsta e business-ul lui, nu? De aici?
Da, e un punct de-a lui.
But despite the trademark contract and the confirmation by his employees, George told us he's not the boss.
Nu am nicio treabă despre GVC, nu aveți, nu știu, nu v-am spus.
Dar de ce zic oamenii atunci de acolo, din Cașvana, că e a dumneavoastră GVC?
Din cauza că acolo sunt foarte multe firme care lucrează cu lemn. Fratele meu e director la Holz Industrie, la o firmă foarte mare. Și din invidie, din știți cum, să-i facă rău lui fratele meu sau știți cum.
Several hundred kilometers southwest of Radauts, in the heart of the Carpathians, is Schweighofer's mill at Sebeș. This was Schweighofer's first mill in Romania, and they were supplied every year with $11 million worth of wood by a company called Alredia. Alredia is being investigated for buying illegally cut wood. The owner of Alredia told us the wood he received came with convincing paperwork, and it was not his job to check if it had been legally cut. Schweighofer says Alredia has all the proper certifications guaranteeing the legal origin of the wood, and therefore they have no reason to not continue buying from them.
Bună dimineața! Potrivit procurorilor Direcției Naționale Anticorupție, din 2013, șeful Rom Silva, Adam Crăciunescu, ar fi acționat în favoarea unui grup infracțional organizat și implicit în defavoarea instituției pe care o conduce.
For the last 2 years, news headlines have been full of the scandal at Romsilva, the department which runs Romania's forests. Romsilva is the largest and most important supplier to Schweighofer, from local offices all the way up to the forestry department headquarters in Bucharest. Corruption is endemic. The former head of Romsilva and some of the highest in the land are being investigated by prosecutors for forest frauds, which cost the people of Romania hundreds of millions of dollars. very few have been prepared to blow the whistle. This is Mihail Hanzu. He has a PhD in forestry. He believes trees are vital for the future of humanity. He worked in a forestry department ensuring logging companies supplying firms like Schweighofer obeyed the rules. He alleges his colleagues took bribes from loggers to let them take more wood than they were allowed.
Dau diametrele mai mici, le scriu în carnetele de inventariere mai mici decât sunt în realitate în pădure. Adică sunt tăieri, partizi, așa numite partizi, în care 80% din lemn nu apare în acte.
His colleagues were allowing a free-for-all.
Practic, firmele care cumpără partizile alea nu cumpără lemnul respectiv, cumpără dreptul să intre în pădure. Că odată ce intră în pădure, taie ce vor.
When he refused to sign falsified documents and go along with the corruption, they threatened him.
Mă amenințau cu moartea. De 2 ori pe săptămână mă amenințau cu moartea, câteodată și de 2 ori pe zi. Dar când au început să se învârsească amenințările astea, m-am gândit că dacă mor nu mai pot să fac nimic. Și important era să pot face ceva.
Dar de ce te amenințau cu moartea?
Nu semnam acte ilegale care subevaluau volumul de lemn la firmele care urmau să cumpere lemn în ocolul respectiv. Și eu eram inginerul de la așa numit fond forestier. Nu era unul care să nu accepte, nu era unul care să nu ia. Nu era unul care să nu aibă câștiguri de natura asta.
Câștigau și bani?
Da, ce?
Erau oameni
Glorie.
bogați?
Da, sunt foarte bogați. Se știe cine sunt acolo brigadieri și ce firme au și ce afaceri au și ce... Da, nu-i secret. E public.
Because the forestry department was under the authority of the town hall, Hanzu took the paperwork to the mayor, who did nothing. So when he went to the mayor again, he secretly recorded the conversation.
Dar nu mă pot integra într-un grup infracțional organizat, Horațiu, că ce fac ei acolo sunt infracțiuni. Dar stai să spun, stai să-mi spun. Ele sunt niște acte false. Eu nu pot să fac mai departe acte când știu că el îmi dă acte false. Păi îl văd că îl face de față cu mine și cu martori acolo. Păi nu pot să nu mă uit la el dacă îl vine și face... Păi, dar nu că face...
Mihail was left with no option but to walk out of the corrupt office. But he gave us his secret recording. We went to see the mayor and played it for him.
Poate vorbeam despre...
Spuneți că nu se integrează, că el nu se integrează în toate acestea. Vă spune că e un grup infracțional organizat și că e imposibil.
Acum, deci, ideea este în felul următor. Dânsul a fost angajat acolo, eu nu puteam nici să impun să facă anumite lucruri, cum nu i-am impus să facă niciun lucru în ceea ce privește activitatea ocolului. Am înțeles, acum am spus, cred că am spus suficient de multe lucruri. Din punctul meu de vedere, îmi doresc ca lucrurile să se clarifice, cei care sunt răspunzători și dacă sunt răspunzători să plătească dacă e cazul.
As for his recommendation that Hanzu turned a blind eye to corruption, the mayor has a more nuanced explanation.
Nu a fost nicio presiune din partea mea ca să dea demisia și nici nu aveam niciun motiv să fac lucrul acesta, sincer. Adică eu, un cetățean pe care îl respect, nu am cerut cuiva să se integreze într-o colectivitate, la un loc de muncă, nu sub alt aspect.
Mihail refused to just walk away. He then went to the nearest anti-corruption prosecution office in Alba Iulia to tell them about the multi-million-dollar corruption. During questioning, the law enforcement agent asked whether he knew the final destination of the logs. But before he could say Schweighofer, the conversation was suddenly interrupted.
Intră o femeie acolo și zice lucrurile astea să le discutați în alt birou, nu în biroul ăsta. Am ieșit afară, polițistul judiciar cu care discutam îmi dă tot ce am adus acolo, copii după documente înapoi. La insistențele mele ține un tabel, un simplu tabel și îmi zice, domnul Hanzu, noi alt birou n-avem.
Other prosecutors are now investigating what Hanzu mentions in his complaint. Mihail moved to Bucharest and is now researching how best to harvest timber from the forests without destroying them. We're alarmed by the fact that a huge percent of the Amazon rainforest has been cleared since the 1960s, putting native tribes and all the animals of the jungle in peril. This is what that decline looks like. We're outraged at the clearing of the Indonesian rainforest for palm oil production, putting the future of the orangutan at risk. But the speed of clearance in the Carpathian Mountains since the turn of the century is just as astonishing. Sebeș Supermill consumed as much wood every day as the typical Romanian furniture company does in a year. In 2005, this area of forest south of the mill looked like this. But by 2012, the whole area was scarred. We don't know that all the logs went to Schweighofer and how much of it was illegal, but half of all wood cut in Romania is mafia wood. And since Schweighofer came to the country, about 260 million trees have been lost. In the last 3 years, there's been even more deforestation.
Es wäre völlig falsch, aus der Sicht eines Familienunternehmens diese Ressource zu zerstören.
We tried to get answers from Gerald Schweighofer. We went to Radauts, where he was meeting some journalists at his luxury hotel. We persuaded the billionaire to meet us too, but he refused to answer our questions.
Not just there is a lot of families that never give me interview.
I will ask you in English and
You can reply. I cannot understand English.
The company later told us they didn't know some of their suppliers had been convicted of illegal logging and that others were under investigation for organized crime. They said in the future they would not buy wood from criminals and that their sawmills check that all the timber is legally cut. The Romanian government says saving the forests must be a national priority, but in the meantime, the Carpathians continue to be destroyed by legal and illegal loggers.